Howdy, fellow vine trippers. I wanted to take just a moment before the show starts to let you know about a great website called Texas Wine Lover. They can be found at txwinelover.com. And they have a comprehensive website that can become your go-to site for information on Texas wines, winemakers, and the wineries that can be found in the state. They even have a phone app that you can download, and that will help you plan your route to create your own wine trip. So make sure and check them out at txwinelover.com. Welcome to Texas Under Vine, an exploratory podcast to scout out the best that Texas wine country has to offer. I'm your wine guide, Scott, and I'm here to lead you on an auditory expedition to the vineyards and wineries across the great Lone Star State. Each episode will cover a different vineyard, winery, or wine-related business operating in Texas. You'll hear interviews, descriptions, and details about each location that will excite you to visit and experience them for yourself. Ready to plan a wine tour? Use these episodes to choose the most interesting spots for you and your friends to check out. Most of all, enjoy hearing about the rapidly growing wine industry in the state and what makes our wines and wineries the best. Howdy, fellow vine tripper. Welcome to episode 8 for Texas Under Vine. Today, we're checking in on a newer winery and vineyard outside Johnson City called Siboney Cellars. This winery is about 4 miles west of Johnson City on the famous Wine Road 290. One of the cool things about this winery that you notice when you first drive up is it's got this kind of winding little road up through. You see the vineyard and the grapevines there on the left-hand side. But as you go up towards the tasting room, you see how there's this really cool elevation change where it goes down from where the vines are kind of up this hill, and the tasting room is kind of built up into the hillside, which provides really great views of the area and of the over the vines and everything. It's a really nicely created and well thought out and planned tasting room in the side of that hill. There's a great story about the name of the winery. There's a lot of Cuban heritage in here. Miguel Lecuona's uncle performed a song called Siboney, and you'll hear more about that in the actual interview. I'm going to leave that up to Miguel to be able to tell you that story, but it's a really cool story to see how everything came together to name the winery and to hear what that whole story of Siboney is. They started making wine in 2017 before they even had their location, and they partnered with Hawk Shadow and other people to be able to use their facilities, but they were able to purchase the current site where they are right now in 2019. So another cool aspect is that Miguel worked in Bordeaux for a period of time. He was part of an educational program there back in 2008. He tells a funny story about how it was right after he and his wife Barbara, who's the winemaker for Siboney, got married, and they had to kind of work out an arrangement for that after he got accepted into that program. But he has spent some time there in Bordeaux. You will see some photos and things like that there at the winery that he took during his time at different vineyards there in Bordeaux. They do a lot of really cool, fun events at this winery. They have different dinners that they do all the time. They have these fun Cuban domino tournaments, and they'll go out and they'll roast a whole pig and bring that in, and then you can partake of that. They make these incredible Cuban sandwiches that are really, really good. And they also do twilight tastings on Thursday night. So Thursday night of every week, they open up late. They're not open during the day, but they open up in the evening on that day to come in and enjoy a glass of wine and enjoy as the sun goes down. They have Cuban cigars, things like that. You'll hear more about that again in the interview. But if you're really into cigars, Miguel's got some things in store for you there. But just to come out and enjoy the beautiful evenings and watching the sun go down in the hill country, drinking a nice glass of wine in a beautiful property and with beautiful views. And that's on Thursday nights. They also have this really cool upstairs members loft, the Libre Lounge, and it's dedicated to his uncle. And They have this beautiful white piano up there. He will bring in some live music events up there, and they will, as he says in the interview, kind of pipe that music down to people in the tasting room and so forth. So it's not just the members who get to enjoy it, but you do get to see it live up there if you are a member. Again, they have these great family recipe Cuban sandwiches that you have to try if you're there on a day when they're making them. I think they do those on Mondays and then on Thursdays. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think they also do that sometimes when they do those pig roasts and they do the Cuban Dominoes tournaments. But it is worth checking out and going to visit them if you are out there in that Wine Road, Johnson City and Fredericksburg area. Highly recommend this winery, not just because of Miguel's experience. Barbara's an incredible winemaker. I can't really say that I've had a wine there that I didn't like. They just had amazing productions with their wines. I highly recommend all of them, everything from the dry reds to the whites, even sweet. They make an incredible port that my wife has fallen in love with. It's really good. And again, if you're into cigars, Miguel really makes a point of getting some of the finest Cuban cigars, even though they're not directly from Cuba. They're from Nicaragua from Cuban farmers that he brings in there. It's an incredible selection, and you have to check that out as well. So you get a lot of different types of experiences at this winery, and it is just a really, really beautiful facility, very well maintained. The staff was great. I wish I could stop in at this winery every single time I go to the Hill Country. It's how much I really enjoyed that time. And I was actually able to take some time to relax in their beautiful upstairs member lounge with Miguel Lecuona. He's one of the owners, again, of Siboney. And we were able to talk a little bit about the winery itself and what they offer. And he's an excellent spokesperson for the winery. And I know you're going to enjoy really hearing from him. So let me take a moment then to transition over to hearing from Miguel Lecuona. So I'm here with Miguel and tell me a little bit about yourself first, just personal. What got you into the wine industry, Miguel?
Well, I've been working in the industry for about 12 years full-time. And prior to that, like many people, you come across a wine at some point in your life that kind of changes you, and you think about, why is this wine different? Why am I paying attention to it at all? Normally wine is I'm just happy to have it. But in some cases, you find something that's interesting to you, so you start to explore a little bit. It could be education, it could be tasting, but eventually you start getting some traction on some things that are interesting to you. This happened to me in about 2005, 2006. I had worked in Walnut Creek for a technology company and started to drive into Napa in and out and was looking at that area. But I'd always lived and worked in Texas. I've worked in technology and marketing and advertising for many years. And I'd always come to the Hill Country because everybody in Texas does. Everybody loves being in the Hill Country. So coming up here and starting to see the evolvement of the Texas wine industry was fascinating and surprising at the same time. And I began to think about that not just as a lover of wine, but as somebody who wanted to be involved in the industry itself, because I was really admiring what was taking place here.
So tell me about this location. So how did you start this location, and tell me about the history of it?
Well, Siboney Cellars, if you're talking about Siboney, you're talking about something Cuban. So it's not a direct fit to what people think of when they think of the Texas Hill Country. But it's important for us because it's an experience that we really have put together here. The site itself is classic Hill Country. It's beautiful. It's 4 miles west of Johnson City. It's on Wine Road 290, which has been the most visited site in Texas and one of the top wine destinations in the country for years. So we're beginning to develop this in Blanco County as an industry, and we're right in the middle of that. So the location is beautiful. It's about 1,500 feet elevation, but there's a 100-foot elevation change on the property from the gate to the top. And that really captures a lot of our imagination here. When you're in the tasting room, you have commanding views of the Hill Country. You can see horizon lines 10 to 15 miles away. You're looking out over a vineyard that was just a few years ago cedar and blue grama and wildflowers. So in looking at that was also an inspiration. The first development we did on the site was to situate the vineyard itself. There's a limestone terrace that's elevated around the perimeter of this vineyard. That basin has taken soil for many, many centuries just from erosion and runoff. So it's got good soil, not great, but good. You couldn't plant peaches here, for example. It's not fertile enough for that. But grapes will have a very good struggle to survive and thrive here, and we think that's what we have in mind for the Merlot that we planted here in 2021. So the site was purchased in 2019 with our partners, Bill and Marianne Waldrop. Barbara and I had already been in wine for some years. Siboney, in fact, dates to 2017. So we had 3 vintages prior to coming to 290. And then we began to develop the site here for wine production, hospitality, and vineyard.
And then I think I remember you told me at one point that you spent some time in Bordeaux.
Yes, that's true. Prior to moving back to Texas, I did an education program in Bordeaux, a Master's of Wine Marketing and MBA program there, and we tasted and saw everything. That was 2008. That was the year Barbara and I were married. So we were married in February of 08, and at that point, I received notice from this program in Bordeaux that they had accepted me as a student there. I said, well, I wonder if I can go. So we talked about it, and she said, is it taught in English? I said, it is. She said, well, you should go. So we arranged for that so that I could be in Bordeaux 6 weeks at a time. She could come over, I could come back, and I spent the full year from October of 2008 through 09 living and working in France.
But did you learn a lot from the wine industry at that time?
Of course. It was academically, it was a very important program because you meet people from throughout the world of wine, the whole industry, and you see how it begins to be structured. There's a lot of different ways that wine is taken to market. We sell direct to consumer here at Siboney, and there's a lot of wineries that are very successful in that, but a lot of the world buys wine online, and a lot of the world buys wine through distribution. So to see the historic Place de Bordeaux and how wine is sold throughout the world, diffused through a network of sales professionals who go country by country to sell the finest wines in the world, that was really fascinating. You can then talk to the chateau owners and you think about what their missions are and how they differ from what ours is as a winery. They're so focused on their estate vineyards, on production, development of the finest possible expression of their site that they can do. And then they worry a little less about selling because they sell everything at once through a distribution network that then takes responsibility to diffuse it all over the world. So they have sales reps basically it could be in Japan, Hong Kong, London, Germany, Scandinavia, Canada, US, Mexico, a lot of the major markets. But the chateau can think about what's the best decision for the wine and for the vintage. And that to me is a foundational lesson for everybody in the Texas wine industry too. We have to think about site and we have to think about selection and what is the best way to bring wine to the top of its quality capabilities here.
You talked a little bit about your some of your plantings that you have here. I saw them as I came in. You could see the vines and all of that. Where all do you source your grapes? Is it all estate, or do you source things from other places? Where are you getting most of your grapes?
We planted our vineyard in 2021. We began to design and lay out the vineyard in the year prior to that. We buy from nurseries in California. Texas has bought mostly nurseries that grow vinifera in California. There's several really good nurseries, but there's also some in New Mexico, and a few of the wineries were planting from New Mexico grown, cultivated vines as well. So in this case, our grapes, while our estate is growing, we have been buying from growers throughout the high plains and some in the hill country as well. But I would say 80 to 85% of our grape production in our wines comes from the high plains.
And do you process all of that here on site?
We will. We do. We have for the 2022 vintage. A lot of this has been a logistical challenge in that Barbara has made our wines in 3 different locations before being able to consolidate here. We started in 2017 in Dripping Springs with Hawk Shadow. Met them on the crush pad at William Chris when I was working on some projects for William Chris. And like many Texas wine growers, there's a lot that happens on that crush pad that really sort of diffuses through the whole industry. And the Hawk Shadow team was there crushing their first orange muscat grapes that they had gotten. So we met them, and Barbara began to work on our first vintage in 2017 there. In exchange for her work on site there, we were able to use our grapes, our yeast, our protocol, our barrels, and produce our first vintages there.
Cool. I was just at Hawk Shadow yesterday, actually, interviewing with them.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. A beautiful view and everything they have, and the three guys, that Chip and Doug and Tom, great people.
It's the kind of family you hope you find in any industry, in any place. They're really hardworking, they're completely humble about it, and they're incredible wine lovers.
Oh yeah, very off the beaten path, but worth the trip to get out there to where they are. It was just really neat.
We learned from that too. I mean, they built this limestone underground cave. It took about a year or two for it to sort of dry out and stabilize. They did not enclose it, right? It's raw limestone. It's like you're standing in the middle of the Edwards Aquifer recharge zone. It's beautiful. So, and during heavy rains, you can see it percolating through. So you actually learn a bit about Texas terroir just being there. And him digging that out, and then they used a rock saw to plant some of their vines. They're on heavy limestone and chalk up there. So they have a very interesting long-term site. And that gave us courage to actually think about Siboney here, because we have this limestone ridge as well. And the fall of land is about 40 to 50 feet between the top point of the structure to the bottom of the vineyard, and then it falls further to the gate. So we actually excavated into this limestone terrace about 15 feet, 16 feet deep, and situated the winery so that the barrel room is below grade, the winery is below grade, and the tasting room then has that commanding view over the vineyard. But then inside, you can come up to a beautiful staircase, and in fact, this is where we are. We're seated right now in the members' loft. It's called Libre. And here you have a view of the highest point of the property over the barrels, and then behind us out onto the terrace with big views of the whole hill country.
It's gorgeous, just gorgeous up here. So what are your favorite wines that you make?
Well, Barbara, I think, is going to be a complete winemaker. I think based on what we've already worked with and what we've already produced, if we can continue to provide her with quality grapes and vineyards, things are going to come out in a very advantageous way. I love a lot of the white wines that we have done over the years because it's artisan level barrel work. For example, if you look at the Roussanne we have on the table here, or the white Rhone blend, we call this Hot Shot. But if you look at both of those, they actually have a greater depth of color. This is barrel fermentation at work here. We never had tanks for the first 2, 3, 4 vintages. So a lot of the whites that we do express a greater body. They've been stirred on the lees. They've done fermentation that way. So they have a depth of color and a body that I personally love. It's more Bordeaux style in that way. We do a Sauvignon Blanc that we've sold out 2 years in a row. We've got another one coming. But that is also barrel fermentation. More like a white Bordeaux as opposed to something from the Loire or New Zealand. So they have different expressions, but I tend to favor the way that our whites come out, and I really enjoy those. Roussanne, we're actually going to feature at a beautiful dinner coming up in December. It's a great food-friendly wine, and that is, every wine should really have that in mind. It's a cultural distinction for wines to be paired locally with cuisine that way. So if you like it in glass, you should love it at the table.
And then what would you say are your customer favorites? What are the ones that people just can't get enough of?
Well, I'll give you 2 examples. We had a recent Saturday, we had quite a bit of first-time visitor traffic on a Saturday, which is normal for the hill country, right? You're talking about Wine Road 290 and a lot of visitation. We say in the business that Saturdays happen to you. You can control other days, but Saturday you have to be open to what is happening with your public. So we actually like that. But we served more Malbec than we had ever served any other wine that day, and it was new for us in this vintage. And I was thrilled because we've had other red wines that have been highly accepted, but they're maybe more exclusive to members. Like we have a beautiful Cabernet Franc. We tasted that and went straight to the member program. But this Malbec, we're thrilled about it. It's a 2020 vintage from a new vineyard that we're working with in the High Plains, Chalice Vineyards. Mike and Teresa West are doing a great job. They're a young family there. That's an important relationship for us, and it's an important wine. And for that to sell out on a Saturday to new people as well as members, that was very gratifying.
So if from a listener's perspective, if they've never been here before and they were thinking, I want to go check out Siboney and maybe do a tasting, what are the things they should know about the tastings that you provide? What wines do you typically, do you have a flight of wines, or do they get to pick the wines? What are the costs, the hours, reservations needed? What are the things that are details they might want to know?
Sure. Siboney Cellars, on our website, you can book a reservation at SiboneyCellars.com. Go to the visit tab there, and then you'll see a number of experiences on the tab. We have a classic wine tasting, 5 wines. It's priced at $25, and you should allow about an hour, maybe a little bit more for this. We're not a winery that's going to pour and move you along. We really have an appreciation for the wines we're pouring. We think you're here for a reason. The experience is important to us, and if you have time for us, we have time for you, and that's the basis for how we approach everything. And we get a lot of feedback from that, from customers on first-time tasters for that. So we have a beautiful tasting room with seated tastings for everybody. We serve 5 wines. Barbara, being a complete winemaker, we love offering, this is very typical, the season that we have right now. We have a beautiful 2021 Coral Rosé. We offer one of our whites. We're rotating through several vintages of our white Rhone blend. And then we have 3 reds. We're offering a GSM, a Cab Sauv, and this Malbec that we just spoke of a little while ago. So that's a classic tasting, 5 wines. You'll get a really good feel for how Barbara makes wine, what the style is, and also a good range of what Texas is producing right now.
What other types of attractions might somebody want to come check out?
If you want to get more from what Siboney has to offer, we welcome that. We have a premium tour and tasting. This is a $40 program, and it's 6 wines. We bonus you on that. Plus, we give you a site tour of the vineyard and the winery itself, and give you a sense of what it means to be a member for a day here. You get to see and do a lot. Basically, it's about an hour and a half of time on site here, and you're with our very best tasters, and we will typically bonus you something off the member list so you get a feel for some of the limited release wines that Barbara has to offer. And then you really get to see the heart of the program too. We tell a lot of stories about the wines, not just technically, but what is the reason a particular wine is important to us. There's a lot of stories we tell about Travis and Hot Shot. We tell a story about the Merlot harvest from 2019 that was foundational for everything that we do in the High Plains. And we have more wines coming that are important for the relationships that we have with growers. And that's what we really love to express, is the investment the growers in the High Plains have made themselves and how best we can showcase the quality of those wines. We have a couple of other options too. Culinary, we have a beautiful culinary board. It's a charcuterie board worth sharing. There's maybe 15 different items on this board. It's substantial. It's a great board to share. Spanish influence, also Italian and French on the board. We serve warm bread with that. You get honey and triple cream cheese. I mean, it's a real time consumer that you're going to love to have. Then we also do Cuban sandwiches. Now, this is unique to us. On Mondays for lunch, and then also on Thursdays, we offer Cuban sandwiches. And here, I have to say, I can't call it a recipe because we never wrote it down, but it's a family method. We're making the mojo, we're roasting the whole pork loin here, we're pressing them, and the bread itself comes from Ybor City, from Tampa. So that's a special offering that for Siboney is unique.
Tell me about the story behind the name Siboney.
Well, Siboney has many different references in Cuba. For us, the most important is the song. Siboney is a love song. It was written in the 20s, I should say the 1920s, because we're deep in the 20s now. In the 1920s, Siboney was written. It's a Cuban love song. It was sung by Bing Crosby back in the day. It was sung by Placido Domingo, and it's sung in Austin by Raul Malo, the Mavericks. They sing it. It's Siboney, yo te quiero, yo me muero por tu amor, which means I want you and I will die for your love. And it speaks of the passion that Barbara and I have, not just for our life and our marriage, but for the journey that we're on and for everything that we're doing. The song was written by my great uncle. He was a composer in Cuba. Ernesto Lecuona wrote many songs that crossed over into from Latin America into American culture. And so we actually express a lot of what we do in this form. You can just see in the loft, for instance, just down at the end there's a grand piano. It's a white grand piano. It's a Yamaha digital piano. We have this here for a reason. First of all, it's the best iPhone speaker you could ever have for Bluetooth. But more importantly, it's a performance piano. So we have piano players who will come here. They'll bring a singer, and we'll have duets and performances here from the loft, not just in the loft and over the barrel room, but I can connect it and broadcast it throughout the whole winery. So we can have a very nice special event related to our love for music and artistic expression that way. We most recently did this on a Thursday evening. We offer twilight tastings on Thursdays. This is also something unique that we wanted to bring to the market, mainly because we love being here. We love the hill country. The site is gorgeous at night, so we light up the vineyard. We offer terrace tastings. We have fire pits in the winter. But we also will host singers, and we had a Colombian singer-songwriter here a couple of weeks ago, and it was a beautiful event. She sang from the top of the Libre Loft. It's an intimate space, right? I mean, you're looking at 25 to 30 seats here. We have a terrace directly behind us for another 30 to 40. The main tasting room is similar size. We're not a vast, like a barn dominium style winery. We're very purpose-built. We're sitting above a barrel room that holds 200 to 250 barrels, enough for our first 2 vintages. We also have just behind us through this picture window, the tank room. So you're in a very functional space that's also beautiful, and we want guests to be able to have as much Texas wine experience as they can take. One other element that we're working with here as an experience at Siboney that's also, I think, new to the hill country. For the last year, we have offered cigars. Now, being Cuban, it seems a natural thing, but not everybody goes for cigars. So we were not exactly sure how to proceed on this, but we traveled to Cuba in 2018, Barbara and I, with our family. My father, when he passed away, he asked me to take his ashes back. And he said, Miguel, will you take them to Cuba? Will you take my ashes and spread them in the Bay of Havana in front of El Morro, in front of the castle? I said, well, Papa, this is a communist country. We can't just walk in and do what we want. We have to organize a plan, but we did it. And one of the places we visited there was Pinar del Rio in Vinales, where the tobacco is grown for the best cigars in the world. And that was very interesting also, because when you taste cigars with a winemaker, all of a sudden things are changing in your mind. What is it that we're experiencing here? It's not just friendship. It's agriculture, it's place, it's sourcing, it's fermentation, it's aging, it's all the things that we think about in wine already happening in this beautiful field in Cuba. But they have no tractors, they have no diesel, they don't have a way to refuel a tractor. There's no GPS, there's no automatic sprinklers, it's all manual, traditional methods. They have oxes pulling a skid to bring the tobacco into the A-frame, and yet it's one of the finest products of its class in the world. So what is that? That's the lesson we took home. It's passion, it's location, and it's experience. And with those 3 things, you can do an awful lot. So we were inspired by that. And while I can't offer you a Cuban cigar, I can offer cigars made by Cubans. They are exiled in Nicaragua. So we are featuring a line of cigars that are grown from Cuban seed. And we present a beautiful program here for about the past year. And they've been highly regarded. And they've encouraged me enough that I have a cigar club now within our winery group for a few members who wanted to be here on a regular basis. And nothing could make me more delighted than to have that experience with people here too.
So tell me about your wine club. What are the details and the benefit to being in your wine club?
Well, we just talked about one of the secondary aspects of it, which is a club within the club for cigars. But the wine club itself, for Siboney, there's some traditional components in that we offer wine 4 times a year on a seasonal basis, spring, summer, fall, winter. And then you can pick up wines of you can buy wines in 3 different flights, 3 bottles, 6, or 12. When you choose 6 bottles per shipment or 12 bottles, you have member choice. You can choose the bottles you want. We'll always provide you with what we think is best for the season, and you can decide to pass or play on those bottles for the 6 and 12s in particular. We have a discount on wine, of course, and even a discount on cigars, 15% when you are in the club. But you also have the access then to the Libre Loft and a lot of the events that take place here. It's a nice space to be in, so we enjoy serving our members in this loft. We do special tastings here just for members, and we've got wines that are exclusive to the membership itself. Probably our most highly regarded wine is a Cabernet Franc from 2019 from Leahy Vineyards that when Barb and I tasted it, we decided to put it straight into the wine club program itself directly. So, and it's proving to be very favored, and it's selling through, goodness, even faster than I expected. So we would like more Cab Franc. So we're working on that too for upcoming vintages. So it's a wine-driven, small artisan-level program. It is growing because there's a lot of demand in the Hill Country for quality wine, and we're very, very fortunate to be able to offer some wines from Barber that I think meet that need.
So when a listener comes to visit, what are some basic details? Like what are your operating hours?
We are open 5 days a week, Thursday through Monday. We're off Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll be picking up those hours. I think in 2023 we'll add more days to the calendar and probably some more hours to some of the days. Like I mentioned before, we offer twilight tastings on Thursday evenings. So we open at 5 o'clock on Thursday during the winter, 6 p.m. in the summer, but it's a 3-hour availability based on twilight tastings. Glass and bottle service, Cuban sandwiches, culinary. It's just a beautiful, relaxed time to be here. Friday through Monday, we are open regular business hours, 11 to 6, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then noon to 5 on Mondays. What
about some basic details like over 21 only, family friendly? Do we have kids? What do we do with that?
Right. Being in Blanco County, we offer, we have terrace seating, covered terrace seating, so we host families with children are allowed. You can bring your dog on a leash. We have a lot of well-behaved dogs that come here. So we do have terrace seating for outside service for families covered, and then also for dogs.
Do you have any maximum group sizes? Do you prefer reservations for big groups?
You can make a reservation online at SiboneyCellars.com. Go to visit. Any group of 6 or less, you can make a reservation without question. If you have a group of 8 or more and you're interested in something, we have a private tasting room, and that's available for groups by reservation. We can book you into there and organize a plan for you. We have a slightly different way of looking at groups. While we're not on the main tour routes, we're not on shuttle services, we don't really work with large buses, but there are lots of wine tour lovers who come through who want a special location to taste. That we can do. We don't hesitate to put our best wines with our best servers into a private tasting room and offer you an elevated experience. So if you have a group that you really want to work with, we have 1 or 2 appointments per weekend where you can book for that. 11:30 on a Saturday, perfect. We'll take you into the private tasting room and you'll have a very good event.
And that kind of leads me to my next question. Busy versus slow seasons. What's the best time to visit if somebody wanted to come out to see you? Is there a time that you recommend that's usually better to come versus times that are more busy to come or things like that?
Well, you're, again, in a tourism area. I think there's more tourism pressure on wineries the further you get to Fredericksburg, right? So we're 4 miles west of Johnson City in Blanco County. Another 5-6 miles down the road, you get to High, and then 20 miles from there is Fredericksburg. So we have room for walk-ins. Saturdays will be busy with both walk-ins and reservations. Sunday feels like a very good members club day. Everybody's allowed to be here, but we have lots of members who enjoy being here. So that day we do lots of special programming, different kinds of events. Yesterday we hosted what we call a domino day. Yesterday, Sunday. We roasted a whole pig. I hosted a domino tournament here. It's Cuban-style dominoes. It was a team event. and we had people here for a few hours enjoying the day. And we also did regular tastings in the main tasting room. So the space is versatile enough to host different experiences on the same day, and we have the strength of service to be able to do that.
We talked a little bit about distribution earlier when we talked about Bordeaux, things like that. Do you do any kinds of distribution, or do people just sell online? People come here? How can people experience your wines if they can't come into the tasting room?
Siboney is direct to consumer, which includes tasting room sales and service. Online, we have an online website. We do ship to approximately 40 states throughout the country. And we have limited restaurant exposure right now, but we have been on the wine list at Brian's on 290. He's been a great friend and a partner for many years. He's been we've really worked well with Brian on a lot of different programs, but our wine is at his restaurant just down the road. We've been on and off at a couple other places, and we want to resume that in Fredericksburg. There's a couple of restaurants we really admire. In fact, Barb and I, when we lived in Fredericksburg, we were at restaurants a lot more than we are now that we are running our winery. But there's some great places and tables there, so we want to pick up a couple of more of those restaurants and get back involved there.
Well, tell me about what plans you have for future growth of Siboney.
Well, when we think about the future, I mean, we're shiny like a new dime. I mean, we are just getting the full facility open just these past few months. We started to serve in January. We had our first club events inside in January and April, and we opened up more and more of the facility in June, so everything is new. Barbara working in our own tasting room and in our own barrel room in our winery. The future is more of that, to be perfectly honest. We've never had a chance to taste and produce all of our wines within our own same location and serve it from our own tasting room. That's a really special feeling. We had a great day in November. We tasted 20 samples of all the different wines in our barrel room all at once together in our own winery. It sounds like a small milestone, but for us it felt great because we were in control of everything. So we really will have a lot of control over what we produce and present to our customers, and I think that's really great for the future of Siboney.
What, in your opinion, is the number one thing that sets your location apart that would attract people to come visit you?
It's the experience. That's what the feedback we get from customers is they book for the wine, they stay for the views, but they come back for the service and the experience that we have, and that's also why they join. That, I think, is what really sets us apart. We love innovation in the wine industry, but we love a lot of the traditions of our culture and our country as well. So we offer a unique experience in Texas wine. It's all Texas wine, so you can be assured that you're getting the very best that we can possibly do for each of our varietals. But we love the experience that we can offer to customers, whether it's twilight tastings or a beautiful domino day with a roast pig at the side. You know, a lot of the different things that we are doing, even with cigars, and just, we want you here. We want you to spend time here, and that means the world to us that people would come and choose to visit Siboney and stay here with us. When we started the winery in 2017, Barbara and I were working at Hawk Shadow, and we were just pouring out of a tasting room. To be able to come to a location on the hill country and create an estate winery in the heart of the growth of the industry, we really owe that to the partnership that we have with Bill and Marianne Waldrop, our partners. We met them prior to even starting wine. We met them at a wine seminar in 2014, and a few years later we began to produce wine at Hawk Shadow. They approached us and were interested to support. We looked together at several properties. When the four of us came to this site, it just changed everything. And we decided to organize Siboney Cellars here. And that has really proven to be just a major step for all of us, and we've really enjoyed the collaboration with Bill and Marianne, and what it means for Texas wine, I think, is also, that story is coming. Just you wait. There's one other element to Siboney that we convey. We've talked about the name, but the logo itself on the bottle, we did a lot of design work on this, but the heart of the logo is this window at the top of the logo. this four-sided figure. It's a quatrefoil. Now, this is a window that you would see, for instance, on the Mission San Jose in San Antonio. It's on the rose window there. It's also at the top of the Cathedral of Havana. At the top of the cathedral is this window, and then there's stained glass because it's a cathedral, an old mission. But instead, there we were inspired, and we wanted to tie this together with our journey in wine. So what you see here is a picture I took when I was working in Bordeaux. This is a Cabernet bud break from 2009. It was a 50-year-old vine. And it contains the entire promise of the harvest in that first bud from spring. So we set it inside the quatrefoil, put it at the top of the logo, because it reminds us that even at our age, we can renew every year. And that's the promise of the brand and why we do this.
What a great place to drink amazing wine and just hang out. Miguel and Barbara are incredible hosts. They're really building something special there at Siboney. As you come up to the entrance they have these beautiful rock stones there at the entrance. There's very beautiful entrance as you come in, as you drive up and you see those vines and a really cool tasting room they've built into the side of that hill, just overlooking the vines. It's really a beautiful location. And you can tell definitely that lots of time and thought were put into the design of this stream. All of the details were thought of and put into place. As you heard, host some really fun events at the winery, from those Cuban domino tournaments, which I'm not sure. I grew up playing some dominoes myself, but I don't think I could probably compete with those guys. But I think that would be a sight to see sometime, to go just to watch those guys play. But to the cooking of the whole pig, to cigars and twilight tastings, it really is not to be missed. They make great Texas wines, as he said, 100% Texas. And one of my favorites was their Alianico. And I actually got that 2020 Malbec that Miguel mentioned in the interview. I made that my library bottle for this episode. They also make a really tasty port-style wine that I mentioned earlier. My wife fell in love with that while we were there, and you definitely need to try that one. And you definitely need to put this destination high on your list for the next time you come to visit the Wine Road 290. Check out their website. It's www.SiboneyCellars.com. That's SiboneyCellars.com. You can learn about their wines, all these different events. They have a ton of info about the history of their journey into the vineyard and the winery. It's really fascinating to read a lot of their history and has what gone into putting together this winery. When you go see them, make sure to tell them you heard about them on this podcast, Texas Under Vine. I guess it's time to pull myself out of this Cuban paradise and travel to some other wine destinations. I have to admit, I could stay here at this location for hours, but you deserve to hear about all of the great wine locations awaiting you. So I'll say goodbye to Miguel and Barbara and wind this episode up. If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and possibly review the show wherever you get the podcast. As a new podcast, it's really hard to get moved up into those ratings and to get people to see and know that I even exist and I'm providing this service to you guys. And so getting those ratings or reviews really helps the show to get seen by more people. And I really appreciate whatever feedback you might have. Share it with your wine-loving friends. Let them know about it. They may find some places that they'd like to go see as well. So subscribe to the podcast, follow my socials to be notified whenever the next episode is posted. Until next time, happy trails and bottoms up, y'all. Thanks for listening to Texas Under Vine. We strive to provide you with the best information about wine businesses all over Texas. Be sure to check out our website at texasundervine.com and follow us on our socials at Texas Under Vine to stay up on all the upcoming episodes. Please email us with any suggestions or feedback. Also, contact us if you're interested in donating, sponsoring, or advertising on the podcast, just to help us cover our expenses and bring even more great info to you in future episodes. Above all, travel safely, and most especially, drink responsibly. Don't forget to also check out the Texas Wine Lover website and their phone app. If you want to plan a trip to the wine destination I talked about in this episode, The site for Texas Wine Lover and their phone app that you can download will really help you organize a trip so you can go see them. You can check out all of the goodness that I got to experience while I was there. But as you're planning your trip, while you're on their website or their app, you can also find out things like accommodations, restaurants, and even some fun events and things that are going on at the wineries, and maybe even find one that you want to experience as part of your wine trip that you never even expected. So check them out. Again, it's txwinelover.com.